Hey everyone, today is the first tip of the trowel. We had the opportunity to go on up to one of my neighbor's house and prune a Japanese maple. We're gonna do it and do it right, serve these people. But also at the same time, we're gonna teach you guys how to prune and prune it correctly. So if you come on, we're gonna get started, just right up the street.
Eventually.
Okay, so this is a Japanese maple. It's a dissectum, split leaf. I don't know the exact cultivar, but pretty much these are the ones that stay pretty small. They spread more wide than get tall. That's what we're going to be pruning today. And this one's never, not once, been pruned since it's been planted, so it's prime. We're looking at some of the tips that have lost their leaves because it's been a pretty dry year here this year. So that's kind of what's going on here. I'm not going to be looking to prune any of these, but some of these dying tips I will. And that's kind of where I want to start. So I'm going to be looking at any Japanese maple, any tree, any woody plant. You always are going to want to shoot for getting rid of and pruning out the dead or dying. Then we'll kind of work towards getting out crossing things that aren't working towards the structure of the plant. So I think those are the things that we're going to be looking for initially. I wanted to give you a little history on Japanese maple. So are they really Japanese? Yeah, they came from Japan. Came to England first around the 1820s, and then 40 years later they made their way to America. Didn't really become popular for many years, a long time, like 100 years. So I think with the nurseries coming on and the interest, the landscape after the baby booming, I think that's where a lot of these started getting popular in the 1960s. And now we have, I don't even know how many cultivars, 200, 300, 400, 500. A lot of cultivars out there, so it's really hard to kind of figure out which one you like the best. So enjoy that if you ever go to a nursery and check those out. So let's get into it. You know, Japanese maple pruning, folks. The other part about Japanese maple pruning that we should talk about is, you know, it's pretty difficult to learn how to prune Japanese maple. It's something that takes time and cumulative knowledge of proper pruning, and then from there you can kind of get into the artistic approach on it, because it's not only a science, it's also an art form. That's proper Japanese maple pruning, and then it also has to do with personal preference, and what you like over maybe someone else is also going to dictate the way you prune it. So like if this one's going to be uplit, I want to open it up a little bit more so you can enjoy that trunk form and artistic beauty of the trunk that's not even being observed right now at night too. So I think those are the two things you got to think about. It's not only an art, it's also a science. So let's get into it. All right, so before we get started, probably should talk a little bit about safety, right? So with this kind of pruning, I'm not going to be wearing a hard hat. I'm not looking at anything above me, no limbs above me that could perhaps fall, but definitely some safety glasses. ANSI approved, you know, that's a number you should see here to know if they're approved or not, so they actually protect your eyes. I think that's what we need here. Gloves, it's up to you. Those are basically the only safety tools that you need. Is just a good pair of safety glasses, so when you stick your head in here looking around, you get distracted, that something's not going to poke in your eye, you're on your way to the hospital. So safety glasses first. As far as tools go, a good sharp handsaw. This is the kind I use. And then of course a nice pair of what I call bypass pruners. And really you don't want to use the anvil type because they crush the cells, the tissues of the branches, where you want the bypass is this blade bypasses this area and makes a better, cleaner cut without crushing the cells of the plant. So good pair, sharp pruners, sharp saw. The duller they get, the more accidents potentially could happen. So just think about those. I like to keep a holster right on my hip so it's accessible when I'm pruning away and getting around this thing. So those are the two major tools. Everything else will be like clean up. Really, it's that simple. Two good tools like that. Use good quality. You know, don't skimp out on the cheap stuff because you get what you pay for. So we're gonna start pruning. Usually when you're dealing with the smaller dissectum type Japanese maples, it creates a gap, and that's really what you're looking for. So walk around it, and you're gonna continually walk a 360 degree around a Jap maple. That's how you're gonna get the best view, making sure you're not taking too much out. But I'm looking for an opening because I want to start in the middle and work my way out to the plant, to the outer parts. So I'm going to get in here and start working on getting some dead wood first, because that's the immediate apparent need, is to get rid of the dead wood, obviously. So that's what I'm going to do. And then also, as I'm working here, I'm noticing that there's an old bamboo stick that was from the nursery, and remove any ties, any wires, anything like that. But there's a lot of dead stuff in here, so that's what we're shooting for. Now let me talk about the pruning side of it. Japanese maples, you know, if you can zoom in here, have a great idea of showing you the bark ridge, but they don't do a really good job of showing you the collar. The collar almost is not apparent on especially, you know, the thin bark maples, and Japanese maples fit underneath that. So it's really tough. It takes time, it takes knowledge and understanding to where to properly cut. So for you, you know, it's better to leave a stub, because I can correct that as a professional. I can't correct the flush cut. So if you're going to leave anything and figure out how to cut, leave a little bit of a stub rather than flush cut it through the collar. That would be a no-no, because I can't correct that. And once the damage is done, it's done, and there's no reversal. And that's what's cool about pruning. So just kind of throwing that out there, that, you know, you stay on the outside of the bark ridge. Doesn't really have a good pronounced collar area through here, so we just have to learn that over time. And I know that with Japanese maples, I got to stay in this area here to cut. This is one I'm probably going to get rid of, because I don't think it serves the overall structure of the maple itself, but I'm not going to take that yet. Like I said, I'm going to start with the dead wood first, because that's the apparent stuff that needs to be done. No questions there. We know it's dead. Usually on Japanese maples, it's like a grayer versus the, look at the living. Let's look at these two real quick. Look at that color difference between this color and this color, right? That's how you tell what's dead and what's not. Usually it's a gray, papery look of the dead, versus the living is more usually a green to a red. And you can very much tell once you're looking at it close up. So easy to say, dead is all coming out right now. And there's a lot of it.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay, so this is a major cut. The only real major cut we've had in the whole pruning of this tree, the Japanese maple. So I wanted to show that a little bit. And with this kind of cut, you know, anything really larger than your pinky, you really should think about doing an ABC cut type cut, which would be undercut first, and then above that, you know, so come through at about 1/3, and then over the top of that, just a little bit further out on the limb, then you'll make that final cut. And what will happen here is that'll create a fracture here, so we don't rip into the collar or the bark ridge, and gets the branch out of our way. Now, if this was a big branch, see how that split? And now we can go back and make our final cut. Whoops, I hit that light a little bit. Which would be right here on the outside of that ridge. And like I said, the collar is not real pronounced on maples, so you kind of got to guess a little bit, but it's better to leave a stub cut. And just make sure your saw is really sharp. You know, don't use a dull one. This is quality cuts here we're looking for. Nice and easy, don't cut yourself. And that's, you know, that's what a good cut should look like. And it's almost perfect, but you know, that's what you want to see, is a good clean cut, not cutting into the branch bark ridge, not cutting into the collar. And this will be callousing over here in the next couple of days, the weeks, and you know, that's what we want to see. And the time of year to do this, it's a big argument within the industry. It depends on if you're doing it for structure, if you're pruning for structure, if you're pruning for form. If you're pruning for form and structure, the leaves have got to be on so you can see what that Japanese maple looks like while the leaves are out. And otherwise, structure, you'd want to do it when the leaves are off or just about ready to expand. And then after they expand, if the sap flow is an issue, wait till the leaves fully expand, and then you can go in and prune, and then you won't have that dripping, that sap flow after leaf expansion. But really, as long as the tree's healthy, I prefer that anytime during the growing season is when you can prune Japanese maples. So you don't have a canker form underneath is usually what happens with Japanese maples. So just be aware of that. Sanitation practices, using alcohol on your blades and on your saw, of course, and before and after is always crucial. So I think we did a good job, and we'll give you a look at in a second here once I clean up this brush. A little bit more than 25%. I think we got more towards 30%. We needed to take this limb. It was the right thing to look for the structure because they went up like this. It was the right thing to do so it didn't diffuse the light, and it really shows the trunk structure. So I think we pushed it a little bit. I don't recommend you guys to do that if you're beginners, but that was the right thing to do for what our goal is. So we'll take a look here in a second.
A few minutes later.
This is the final plant, the final tree, the final product. Really good job. There's a lot of live tissue that is gone. Just because it's been such a dry year, and you know, as a defense mechanism of all woody plants, they blow their leaves off when they don't get enough water to conserve and reserve their water. So that's kind of what's happened. So there's a good 20% of foliage that's not even showing up on the plant. So I think we did a good job of getting this thing back into a great form. We took out that major branch, that one right there. And you know, I think with Japanese maples especially, anything over a pinky size, I think I mentioned that earlier, you really need to do an ABC cut or a multiple cut to make sure you don't tear into that ridge or the collar. But other than that, you know, I think the big thing I need to talk about is probably starting from the inside and working your way out. Getting rid of the deadwood, of course, but clearing, you know, and pruning and opening this area up in the middle, right? All this area, so you can see the structure. So when you're on the outside, you can start walking around. You need to walk 360 degrees around a Japanese maple. It's crucial. You don't want to take too much out, and you need to look at it. And I think part of the art of Japanese maple pruning is to create these areas where you can see the trunk and the form, how beautiful it is. You don't want to just appreciate the foliage or have a shrub on a stick like this one was, because it's a tree, and it needs to be appreciated and given its dignity back. And I think we were able to do that. But also, you want to see the beautiful form of the branches. And when the, like this one here, right? I mean, that's what's so great about Japanese maples is they give you so much, only if it's pruned right. And I think we are going to be able to give this an uplight, and I think that's going to give it that much more appreciation at night, not overdoing it. So get in here, get in the interior growth, and then I think the idea is to work your way on the outside. I like to take one branch at a time and work that branch, so you don't again take anything that you wish you didn't. Like I mentioned, the pruning, that's what's cool about pruning, is it's cause and effect, right? Once you prune something, you can't put it back. I like that because it confirms how much you know or don't know. And when you get confident and comfortable pruning Japanese maple or anything, it's really cool to make a correct cut, not only for the plant and its health, but also for the form, and bring it back and just do something that is going to be appreciated by other people. So pruning it's a fun thing once you feel confident and comfortable doing it. I think also the other thing to mention about Japanese maple, this is on a street, three-way corner. So this is going to be viewed 360 degrees. And I think you really have to up your game based on, how many angles it's going to be viewed on. And I think we were able to do that here today. So, just take in consideration how many viewing points it's going to have. We'll tell you about your Japanese maple pruning and what you need to do. So I think we did a good job. I hope you got some tips out of this, and another well done job. Thanks, guys.